Okay.
All right, thank you. Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tullahoma. Today's Sunday, January 15. So, welcome to all those of you in person, on Zoom, and those live streaming. So for our opening reading, the readings today have a winter theme to them. So the opening reading is from Lynn Cox. As the new year opens, we begin our story again, gathering courage, love, mindfulness, and a sense of purpose. We gather as people of all ages, of different abilities, different backgrounds, and different perspectives. We share a covenant, a direction for our shared journey, and a commitment to encourage and challenge one another to spiritual growth. Let us move forward with love. Let us move forward with appreciation for one another. Let us move forward knowing that we are not alone. Whoever we are, whatever your gifts, you are welcome to join this journey. So now we move on to our chalice lighting. So Tony, if you would light the chalice there, I'll light one I have here.
This comes from Cynthia Lanthrum at UU. In the bleak and cold winter, we gather ourselves to light this fire, to warm our spirits, and to kindle the flame of love and hope.
Now we move on to announcements. So if you have an announcement, raise your hand, those in person or on Zoom. Yes, Debbie.
Yeah, starting tomorrow at 7:30 at, I get these confused, the CD Stamp Center. They are going to have a Martin Luther King march to the courthouse and then back, and then they'll have refreshments and speakers. And so if anybody's interested, I hope 7:30 in the morning is not too cold tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Other announcements? Rick Phelps has his hand up. Go ahead, Rick. I think you're muted, brother.
There you go. The on and off Thursday night Rethink series will resume this Thursday with all certainty. Since Chuck is back in town, he will put out a link. We will start at 7 and we will address the new materials that are coming forward. Should be a very interesting topic, as all the topics are on Rethink. Please join us.
All right, thank you. Okay, Tony?
Just a reminder, if you're part of one of the groups that's using the building during another time, make sure that you leave the building as you found it. Make sure the thermostat is set back down to 55 degrees, general cleanliness, emptying coffee filters, that kind of stuff. Small congregation, not a lot of money, and we sure can't afford a high electric bill.
Thank you, Tony. Other announcements? Gene?
I just wanted to, I don't think it's fair for, it's acceptable for us to advertise for somebody, but, so I won't give his name. If anybody wants it, they can ask me, but when it was in the low teens at my house, like everybody else's house, my furnace went out. And so consequently, I had gotten the name of a guy who lives fairly close to me, and even though he was busy that day, he said, "I'll be at your house in 15 minutes, and he was. And it took him about another 10 to diagnose apart the motor and take it out and leave. And he told me that if I had a place to stay for the next night, he would fix it the next morning. And he came the next morning, put it back in, and it was off and running, and he was at my house no more than 30 minutes, counting both trips. And he bought the motor and brought it. I wrote him a check, and I had to call him the other day and remind him to put it in the bank. If anybody
Okay.
gets his name, I've got it.
Okay. Thanks, Gene, that's good information, and folks, we can remember that if we need help. Excellent. Other announcements? All right, I have, Carrie, go ahead.
A friend brought this to me the other day, and she wanted to donate it to our church. And I think Larry and I found the perfect place to put it, over the welcome desk in there. I wished it was metal, we could hang it outside, but it's not. And she added this crystal.
All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, so I have a few announcements. The nonviolent communication class started last week with an introductory class, and the regular class will meet now starting next Sunday for 14 weeks, so that's going well. We have 8 people in it, I think it's going to be a good class. We will have a new members ceremony today. Lisa and I just expressed interest in joining, so if anybody else wants to join the church that's not officially a member, we'll do that here in just a few minutes. We do have a need for more help. We need another person as a service leader. Ideally, we'll have 4, maybe 5 people do that, so each person as a service leader does it one Sunday a month. So we really need a service leader for today, the 3rd Sunday of the month. So it isn't that big a deal. We've got things pretty well outlined to follow. So if you are interested in that, contact Lisa Knight. She is the chair of our program committee, and she's coordinating that. We also have a need for another person on the finance committee, and the finance committee is helping the treasurer, Costa, with some of the job duties to lighten the load on the treasurer. So we really would benefit from another person or 2 on the finance committee. So if you're interested in that, either contact me or Costa. And along that same line, as far as treasurer things, in the past, everybody who donated money to the church got a letter for tax purposes stating how much you donated. But in order to lighten that load, we only want to send that out to people who itemize their taxes. The rest of us really don't need it. So if you are itemizing your taxes and need that information, don't have it in your records, contact Costa and she can provide a letter, but we aren't going to send it out to everybody. And finally, we do have a board meeting today. It'll start about 10 minutes after talkback. We don't have a real long agenda, which is a change and a pleasant relief from some of the long meetings we've been having recently. So that's it for me. Any other announcements? Carrie, yes.
Our speaker next Sunday is Doug Traversa, and he will be speaking on belief is not what you think. Something like that.
Okay, thank you. And actually, I have one more announcement. If you want to donate to the church, you can write a check or put cash in a little box in the back of the room, or send a check to the UU Church of Tullahoma, P.O. Box 331 in Tullahoma. So, a couple different ways. So, yes, your financial contributions are greatly appreciated. All right, we will then move on to a responsive reading, and then we will do our new member ceremony, and then we'll follow with our presentation. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Let there be a season when holiness is heard and the splendor of living is revealed.
We are stung to silence and stillness by the beauty of the snow. We remember who we are and why we are here.
There are inexplicable mysteries. We are not alone. In the universe there moves a wild one whose gestures alter Earth's axis toward love.
In the immense darkness, everything is spinning with joy.
The cosmos enfolds us. We are caught in a web of stars, cradled in a swaying embrace, rocked by the holy night, babes of the universe.
Let this time, the winter time, be one that we wake to life in this moment of winter solstice.
Okay. All right. Now we will move on to the new members ceremony. So Lisa, if you'll come forward and stand in front of the group. Does anyone else besides Lisa want to join at this time? All right. So I'll say a few words, then Lisa will sign the book, which is part of the formal process of joining our church and the UU Association. So we gather in this church seeking a higher purpose and a deeper meaning to life that one can find alone. We are grateful today that you, Lisa, have found your way here and that you have decided to make a commitment to this community. We hope that as a member of this church, you will allow yourself to know and to be known, to minister to and to be ministered unto, to love and be loved by this congregation. We never really know what combination of fate and friendship and good luck it is that brings certain people together in this world for any purpose. But we believe that membership in the church calls each of us here to celebrate the faith that has drawn us together and to regard each one of us as a spiritual friend and a potential teacher, even of those occasional hard lessons. You are now part of our family, and with that comes some responsibility. You are now part of our decision-making process. You have the right to vote. There is an expectation that you will help the church in whatever way you can. Finally, that you are in sympathy with our stated purpose, which is to affirm and promote the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. So Lisa, we are so glad that you are here with us and that you have chosen this community of fellow seekers to travel with you on your life's journey. So all right, Lisa, if you will sign the book.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. And thank you for already stepping up and really helping the church with the program committee. Your efforts are greatly appreciated. All right, now it's time for our speakers. So today, Robin Dunn will be speaking to us, and I believe the topic is forgiveness.
I just realized while Lisa was up that I think my phone might be on, so if the phone rings, it would be me. So sorry. The topic, I didn't tell Carrie what I was going to be talking about, and it was hard for me to kind of wrap my idea into a single title. So I think what I will go with is the Civil Rights Movement in the Age of Aquarius. So today would have been Dr. Martin Luther King's 96th birthday. He was born, He was born to a middle-class family in Atlanta, Georgia, on the cusp of the world's economic collapse. He was part of what is now called the greatest generation, who dreamed of a brighter future for their children. And no one articulated that dream better than Dr. Martin Luther King on August 28, 1963, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. 250,000 people were in attendance. That's Neyland Stadium, all right? That's Sanford in Georgia, and the Vanderbilt Stadium, all in one place. That is 250,000 people. That's crazy to even think about how huge that was. And they all had one mission: to bring equality to the American people, especially the people of color. But rather than read from that beautiful speech this morning, I want to take you back even further to one of his works that was in 1957 that he spoke in Birmingham, called Facing the Challenge of the New Age. And he wrote, "Eros is a type of aesthetic love. Now it has come to mean a sort of romantic love. And I guess Shakespeare was thinking in terms of Eros when he said, love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends when the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is a star to every wandering bark. This is Eros." And then the Greek talk about philia. Philia is a sort of intimate affectionateness between personal friends. It's a sort of reciprocal love. And on this level, a person loves because he is loved. Then the Greek language comes out with another word, which is the highest level of love. And it speaks in terms of agape. Agape means nothing sentimental or basically affectionate. It means understanding, redeeming goodwill for all men. It is an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. It is the love of God working in the lives of men. When we rise to the love of on the agape level, we love men not because we like them, not because their attitudes and ways appeal to us, but because God loves us. Here we rise to the position of loving the person who does the evil deed while hating the deed that the person does. With this type of love and understanding goodwill, we will be able to stand amid the radiant glow of the new age with dignity and discipline. Yes, the new age is coming. It is coming mighty fast. Now, the fact that this new age is emerging reveals something basic about the universe. It tells us something about the core and the heartbeat of the cosmos. It reminds us that the universe is on the side of justice. It says to those who struggle for justice, you do not struggle alone, but God struggles with you. Now I want to take a moment to just stand aside from what he said there, and I want you to think about those words, about the word struggle. And I want you to wonder, what if there were another way? Dr. King and the members of the civil rights movement of the mid-century had what Dr. King called moral courage to stand up and protest against injustice wherever we find it. Wherever we find segregation, we must have the fortitude to passively resist it. He said, I realize that this will mean suffering and sacrifice. It might even mean going to jail. It might even mean death. And for him and many, many others, it did mean sacrifice. It did mean suffering. And it did mean death. It was a time of violent and powerful change. And he continued to speak more about segregation in this speech. He states, quote, so we must continue the struggle against segregation in order to speed up the coming of the inevitable new age. We must continue to struggle through legalism and legislation. Struggle. King said, you do not struggle alone. God struggles with you. But God, or the cosmos, or the something bigger, I don't believe does struggle with you or without you. I don't believe that God struggles at all. Lao Tzu is credited as saying, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. But I can empathize with why Dr. King said those words. Where would we be if he had not done the things that he had done? And where would we be if he thought that he was alone? But I want to imagine this new age that King foresaw, because it is in our imaginations that we have the true power. What if this new age, this age of Aquarius, there is no struggle? at least not the same struggles that the civil rights activists experienced? What if it wasn't billy clubs and water cannons, or sit-ins and marches? What if it was prayer rugs and meditation and the internet? Aquarius in astrology is the sign of the water bear, which you might think is a water sign, but really it's actually an air sign. And this age of Aquarius is marking the beginning of a 200-year cycle of Jupiter conjunct Saturn in only air signs. For the last 200 years, according to astrologers, the central focus of humanity has been earthly things, earth signs, possessions, money, physical property, institutions like laws and education, mineral resources pulled from the earth, things with physical footprints, things with physical outward appearances. Things we thought were unshakable or limitless, we might see crumble and disappear. Because for the next 2 centuries, we may see a focus on the invisible, the ether, the air, a shift toward an emphasis on the imagined, space travel, electricity, the internet, technology, virtual reality, energy, the physically unseen, the mind, consciousness. 200 years of consciousness. But right now, our communications and virtual reality technologies are mostly merely toys, and our most advanced technologies are often those tied to entertainment. We are cavemen, just discovering fire for the first time. And much of what we see online is just a recreation of something that we have in this physical world. eBay and Amazon are the marketplaces and shopping malls of yesterday. Facebook seems to be standing in for the old bulletin board and maybe even the old community centers that we used to see flooded. But I believe within my lifetime, we may see technology change the very definition of what the human experience is. Is it our creativity that makes us human? Our ability to create art? My kids play a game that you guys have probably heard of called Minecraft. They love it. And if you can, it's just like you're on this giant world where you've got unlimited bricks and people, and you can just build whatever you could imagine. And so I want you to think, what would you build if you could build anything? What if there were no rules, no risks, not even gravity? Would you build a world like this one? Or would you make it more beautiful or more fun? So my kids have made floating houses, rooms made entirely of glass, restaurants. In fact, my son made a restaurant that looks like a milkshake. That's what he did, my son. So elaborate playgrounds and communities, and they can even play with other people and never see their skin color. Einstein said, if you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. And if you want your children to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales. Einstein knew that creativity stemmed from thinking impossible things. And we have an entire generation of children who are not just imagining fairy tales, they're building them. And for the first time I put on a virtual reality headset, I knew that this is the future. I was working with some of the professors at Motlow, the campus in Smyrna. There were about 6 of us. And I slid those goggles on, and there was my guide standing in front of me, my professor, and it was an electronic version of himself. When this professor spoke out loud, his avatar recreated his movements, and his mouth moved realistically. And his avatar had this pleasant, smiling face. And I followed him around on this sunny, bright, virtual campus. And we visited the bottom of the ocean, and we sat on the moon. I could conjure up flocks of birds and dinosaurs to be there with us, and there seemed to be no limit to how we interacted with one another and the world around us. This is the future. This is how our children will interact with one another, build commerce, build friendships in these invisible places. They could choose how others see them, with avatars of any skin color or any physical ability. Our children will be learning the value of the intention behind the word, the human element behind the shell that contains us. Dr. Martin Luther King dreamed of a world where children would be able to go to school and learn and be part of a community without being judged by the color of their skin. And I believe that time is now. But with access to all this bright and sparkly technology, there is a shadow side. Over the past 200 years, the humanities' focus has supposed to have been on Earth. But rather than honoring the Earth, we've largely exploited it. The shadow side of this technology could be escapism and living only in a dream world. We must train our children now to see this wonderfully and beautifully made natural creation and to cherish it, to go into these virtual worlds and experience beauty so that they can recreate it here in this place. We must train our children to use this technology carefully. Is AI-aided art still considered art? Now a single creator or a single thinker with no experience or knowledge in designing or programming can just imagine an idea and type it into a prompt and see an image manifested by artificial intelligence in a matter of seconds, just as easily as if they had ordered a number 2 with cheese. Ask and ye shall receive indeed. Is creating art what defines us as human? Or is being human something found even deeper within ourselves? In this new world, we must trust the invisible and trust in our own powers. But how can we harness it? Through mindful intention. Lynn McTaggart has spent most of her life as an investigative reporter, and in 2007 she wrote The Intention Experiment. There are hosts of books out there about manifestation and thoughts turning to things like The Secret, Think and Grow Rich, You Can Heal Your Life, just to name a few. Now, these all rely mainly on the author's personal success stories and intuitive wisdom. McTaggart's book is the first one that I've read that had scientifically backed data with large sample sizes and measured differences between control groups and experimental group outcomes. And the results were fascinating. I propose that in the next new age, we will be using our mind to turn our thoughts into things. So I wanted to talk about one in particular experiment that she talks about. Throughout her book, she gives several examples, example after example, about individuals who were the objects of the experimenter's intentions, mainly about experiencing better health. And some of those results were just absolutely miraculous. Over and over again, it was clear that mindset matters. And our mental health and our perceptions of our environment not only affect how we feel on the inside, but I believe it is actually reflected back into our own experience in our own environment. When we find ourselves in toxic relationships, toxic workplaces, toxic environments, our life energy, the human element that makes us human, our spark, our fire, smolders. And if we are not careful, it dies. What is it that makes us human? Our ability to affect change outside of ourselves. It is important that we are able to recognize when we are experiencing pain so that we can respond and we can protect that connection that we have with our higher selves. We cannot afford to become entangled with the people who are blinded by the distractions of this physical time and space. those who believe that what they see is what there is. To be entangled with this binds our healing hands, and we lose what makes us human. By chapter 11 of McTaggart's book, she had already accounted for several cases where distance healing and was shown to be effective. So by the time I was reading chapter 11, I thought I knew the ending, but I didn't. So allow me to read this excerpt to you. And I'll tell you, I have read this particular chapter of this book probably 7 times, and every time, anyway, I'll let y'all listen here. On the eve of the millennium, Leonard Leibovitz, an Israeli professor of internal medicines in Israel and expert on hospital-acquired infections, conducted a study of healing prayer's effect on nearly 4,000 adults who had developed sepsis while in the hospital. He set up a strict protocol using a random number generator to randomize the participants into 2 groups, only one of which would be prayed for. And throughout the study, maintained impeccable blinding. Neither the patients nor the hospital staff knew who was getting treated, or indeed even knew that the study was being carried out. The names of all those in the treatment group were then handed to an individual who said a short prayer for well-being and recovery of the treated group as a whole. Leibovitz was interested in 3 outcomes between the prayed for and not prayed for groups: the number of deaths in the hospital, the overall length of stay in the hospital, and the duration of fever. When calculating the results, he was careful to employ several statistical measures to examine the significance of any differences. As it happened, the group that had been prayed for suffered fewer deaths than their controls, 28.1 versus 30.2%, although the difference was not statistically significant. What was scientifically significant, however, was the major difference, 4 times actually, between the prayed for group and the controls related to the severity of the illness and the time it took to heal. Those being prayed for had far shorter duration of fever and hospital stay, and in generally got better faster than the controls. All right, so we've seen this before, right? The subject of Leibovitz's research, the healing effects of prayer, of course, were hardly new, but his study offered one novel twist. The patients had been in the hospital between the years 1990 and 1996. The praying was carried out in the year 2000, between 4 and 10 years later. It seemed that prayer, according to this study, is not limited by time or space. So I offer one last suggestion on this 96th anniversary of Dr. King's birth, that perhaps the civil rights movement today is the civil rights movement of yesterday. Perhaps the people of yesterday need our prayers too, so that what our ancestors experienced in the past and what our children might see in the future could be changed by our actions today. Perhaps time really is just an illusion. As we enter this age of Aquarius, I believe that with wise stewardship, that technology will help us to envision and manifest a world we never thought possible, but one that Dr. King dreamed about on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial a half a century ago. Through mindset and creativity, our world, made of beautiful earth and clay, made up of people of every color, will come to reflect our limitless imaginations. In closing, I want to borrow one more quote from Dr. King's speech in 1956. He wrote, "Before closing, I must correct what might be a false impression. I'm afraid that if I close at this point, many will go away misinterpreting my whole message. I have talked about this new age, which is fast coming into being. I've talked about the fact that God is working in history to bring about this new age. There is a danger, therefore, that after hearing all of this, you will go away with the impression that we can go home, sit down, and do nothing, waiting for the coming of the inevitable. You will somehow feel that this new age will roll in on the wheels of inevitability, so there is nothing to do but wait on it. If you get that impression, you are the victims of an illusion wrapped in superficiality. We must speed up the coming of the inevitable. And I believe we will speed up this coming of the inevitable and call this new age forth by protecting our mindset through daily specific prayer. I believe that through this, the age of Aquarius will come into being. Imagine yourself in a world of justice and peace as vividly as if you slipped on a pair of virtual reality glasses. Use mindful meditation because it is our human element that makes you, you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. So now we will close with our reading 414. Cast out. Yeah.
And can we suggest that the people on Zoom mute? And then the people in the congregation may sing out loud. And we can sing online, but in mute form. Okay. Okay? So Jim and I will try to sing with you, but.
Okay, we'll sing it and see if we can sing this.
Okay.
As we leave this friendly place,
Love
give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return. All right. That went on your end. It is 11 minutes to 11. So let's get back together at 11 for talkback.
Without effort, you need the car to work.
Yeah. That was pretty great. So.
What year is it?
So it was 3.
Yeah, so I did.